Oh, hi guys, real quickie, this is in response to a question I've just had on a video I put out by Keith. So, hi Keith. Yeah, I know what you're saying about knives. When it gets to specific questions about specific knives, it's quite difficult, especially with what you put and a knife that I don't know. Now the IO Shen kitchen knives, I've had a Google and I've had a look at them and I'm still struggling, because they've obviously got different models and different styles of knives and different edges that they put on the knives. And I'm struggling with yourself because you're talking about putting a micro bevel on. Now, I've got to say there's a massive difference between putting a micro bevel on a knife and putting a very, very small bevel on a knife. They're both completely different things. Normally you'd put a micro bevel on something like a Scandi grind knife or a zero bevel knife, and that just literally just gives it that, just alters it very slightly, makes it a little bit tougher, but that's all it does. Now, to give you an idea, I'll just show you now. To give you an idea, basically, to put a micro bevel on a knife, I would take something like this. Now, this is my ceramic rod. It's a fine ceramic rod. You could use a diamond rod, a steel, whatever it is you've got. Even, you know, you can even use your normal stones and things like that. It just becomes more and more difficult, but it's got to be very fine. And to put a micro bevel on, you would literally, you find the bevel, not on this one, this is just what I'm showing because I'm going to talk to Ken about this one in a minute, but you put your knife onto the zero bevel, which is the Scandi knife, you lift it a little bit and then literally nothing but the weight of the knife goes down the stone. Opposite way, flat down, lift it a little tiny bit extra, couple of degrees, and the weight of the knife down the stone. Now you might do that half a dozen times on each side. That puts a micro bevel on. Now when you've got a knife which is ground really fine to near the end, now this is blunt as a chuff because the most beloved won't let me sharpen her knives, and mine's a boning knife. I just keep a boning knife for everything. I keep that sharp, so I can't really show you a good edge because this isn't. But I think this might be what you're talking about. When you get a knife, and this is a Sabatier, so it's a good knife, good quality knife, and it's been ground till it's really thin near the bottom, but not completely to a point. And then what you've got is a very small bevel on that end. Not a micro bevel, it's just a very small bevel, and that's your cutting edge. And I think that's what you're talking about sharpening. Now what I would suggest, because Keith said he's got a problem, that he's got a bit of arthritis and he finds it very difficult to hold that angle. Don't worry about that. Everybody finds it very difficult to hold that angle, but when I'm talking about sharpening the whole bevel and keeping the bevel flat, it's that small bevel at the end that I'm talking about, not the whole flat of the knife. If you're sharpening the knife completely flat, you're going to end up with about a 6 or 7 degree edge. It'll be absolutely bonking sharp. First thing you touch, you'll just bend the edge, you'll turn the edge, you'll bend the edge. If you touch anything hard like bone, it'll just curl it. So, you know, I'm guessing from what you've said and where you're talking about putting that very, very small bevel on, it's designed to have a secondary bevel. Some of the IO knives, IO Shen knives, I believe are actually convex ground. So the grind would go from the top all the way down, but what happens is it gets to the bottom, it actually curves like that. So instead of having a, you know, it actually sort of like curves. Yeah. So I don't know what you've got, but what I would suggest, I'll show you a couple of techniques that I would suggest that might help. Now one is, rather than using stones, get yourself something like a diamond steel, a fine diamond steel, something like that. Now you'll have to do this on a regular basis. Yeah, because if you don't and you let the knife go blunt, you'll need more. It takes more work. So if you do this every time you use the knife, before and after, you won't ever let it go blunt. Just avoid bone or anything like that. Don't use a hard work surface, stick to wood, things like that. But what you can do, now I'm just going to have to push this camera down a bit, so I'm rushing a bit here because I'm trying to get this done really quickly when I get this out. But basically, what you can do, get your crock stick, whatever it is, put it on a table so it's solid. So as you can see here, all I'm doing is just holding it flat. 90 degrees, then lift your knife up. You can look and you can actually see where your bevel is. If you have trouble with that, get yourself a Sharpie or marker pen and just mark that bevel, mark the whole of the bevel. Then it'll show you whether you're taking steel off evenly. And then all you have to do is then run the knife down, other side, look what you're doing, and run the knife down. and you just do that a good few times every time you want to sharpen the knife. Yeah, and that's all you need to do. Yeah, so it's a lot easier. You're not having to, you know, balance anything or anything like that. Don't need a lot of pressure. It's hard steel apparently on the IO shens, but it's not hard. But that's all you need to do. Just do that, and then you can just adjust that angle to make sure that you're taking off all the marker evenly. That's one technique. Another thing you can do, and I make them funnily enough because I use them all the time because they're brilliant, is get yourself, anything to do, get yourself a good piece of wood. I use thick ply simply because it doesn't warp, it doesn't bend, it keeps itself flat and things like that. It's more stable. It looks very nice getting these made out of a nice piece of beech or whatever. Plywood is more stable, and that's simply because of the layers and the glue in it. Two pieces of leather. One is the rough side up, one is smooth side up. That's polishing compound, and that's left clean. And literally, it's the same sort of thing. I don't know if I can get the camera down far enough to show you what I'm doing here without it falling over. I'll try and get it to there. Oh, I'll sit with that. There we go. And basically, again, put it somewhere flat, nice and firm. Put the knife on here, but this time what you're doing is you pull the knife towards yourself. You see what I'm doing? I'm not digging in. If you go forward, you'll just cut the leather. Turn it over and go back. You don't have to be as precise as with this. It takes a lot longer than using stones, but you don't have to be as precise. But again, like the crock stick, you've got to do it every time you use it and every time you're going to use it if you want to keep your knife really sharp, and you can just keep doing that. Yeah. Your third option, if you've actually got a convex, if it's a convex edge you've got, excuse me while I play around with my legs and hope I don't fall off again. If you've got a convex edge, and rather than a micro bevel, and you can even do it if you've got a micro bevel because it's a bit more forgiving. Again, get yourself something solid. I've just got a piece of steel here, a piece of mouse mat. Put the mouse mat onto whatever you've got. Sheet of wet and dry. This actually isn't wet and dry, but it's just what I've got on my bench. And then what you can do is you fold it over one end, pin it down, fold it over at the other end, pin it down, and then you put that onto your workstation and just keep that flat. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to hold you for this, and I'll just sort of show you what I'm doing here. So now what you can do here, you've got your wet and dry on here. Make sure it's somewhere it's not going to slip. Try and piece of wood or whatever, so it's, you know, the actual the paper at the side helps to hold it. Now what you can do is get some oil, or I can use water or whatever, but a bit of WD-40 or something like that onto here, and then just press that in there, and you're sliding it forward, and then you're bringing it back. Now that will put a little bit of give in it, so you won't actually get that shoulder where you see a secondary bevel form. And you just put it on, lift it up a bit, and it's also, again, it's a lot more forgiving. Down, lift it up a little bit, and down. And all you need to do is, if you ever get it really blunt, is you just change the pieces of paper. Very cheap. There's no need for, you know, really fancy, expensive stones or anything like that. Buy decent wet, buy decent wet and dry paper. Just keep going till you get it sharp. If it's really blunt, start off on maybe a 400 grit paper. You've got 6 and 8, high as you want to polish. Start on something like that if you think it's a little bit blunt. Then go to your polish. Yeah? So it's up to you. It depends on the type of edge. If you've got a secondary bevel, then fine. That will let you keep that edge. Bit of a crock, that bit of a tip will keep that edge. Yeah. If it's not, and it is actually that it's a convex, but because of the sharpening, a lot of people don't know how to sharpen convex. I'm not being insulting here, but it doesn't tend to tell you in the books, and what a lot of people say is convex isn't. To sharpen on a convex on a stone, you've really got to sort of like roll the knife as you're sharpening it. You're rolling it all the time. That's a whole new skill set and a whole lot of practice going on there, which you don't want to do with expensive knives. But they're potentially your three options, which is get your crock stick, keep it nice and firm, makes it easy for your hands and arms, using your big muscles. Bit of a polishing block, just autosol. That's all it needs, autosol, and that will just take enough steel off to keep your knife sharp. If it is a little bit blunt, like I say, bit of metal or thin bit of wood or something solid, your mouse mat, wet and dry. Like I say, if it's already a bit blunt, and that will put, don't forget, that last option will put a convex edge on it. You can still polish it with the strop because the leather will have a little tiny bit of give, although I use very thin leather. thicker the leather, the more the give, the more convex, the less flat it stays. A lot of information. The reason I did this, obviously, trying to do that in a reply would have taken me days to type all this shit out. So I hope that gives you a bit of information. More than happy to help if I can. I hope that gives you something to look at. Have a bit of a Google on what some of the, if you're looking at, is it other ways of sharpening, things like that. But like I say, it's very difficult to answer a question as specific as you sent, and obviously with the problems you have, without actually seeing the knife and seeing what you're already doing and what techniques you use and things like that. But that's 3 options that would make life a bit easier, depending on whether you've got a small bevel or whether you've got a convex grind. So I hope that's been some kind of help, Keith. So give it a go. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope anybody else out there might find that a little bit interesting. A couple of little tips. Cheap way of doing things. You don't have to spend, you do not have to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to sharpen a knife. You don't. I make them and I sell them very cheap. And that keeps most of my knives popping sharp. Okay? In a bag, keep it clean. Don't let any grit get on it. Okay, with that, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for watching. Have a like, have a subscribe, all that awesome stuff that people do to everybody else but me. And I'll catch you out there doing it, guys. Thank you for watching. Have a great one.